any amendments to the minutes?
A small one.
Okay.
On the workshop section, right near the bottom,
What, can you see what page you're on, plus or minus?
right near the end of the whole thing.
Okay. Last page?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It says, after further discussion, it was agreed to schedule an additional meeting before December, finalize the procedural amendments, and then list the next meetings as today
Mm-hmm.
and December 11th.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to clarify that the December 11th meeting is the meeting before December.
I'm sorry?
It should have a comma there or something, because during the meeting, it was brought up to having two different meetings. One for today for the website trail.
I just realized I can read it differently.
And we have to find
it.
out
Scheduled before December.
the parking.
And then December, CSAC. So, I think there could be a comment in there, and I just didn't catch it.
Okay.
So, add a comment.
Okay. Any other comments? I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes with the amendment suggested by Commissioner Dean.
Motion to approve with the comma added.
Is there a second? Second. Is there any further discussion? Not hearing? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Yeah, there's no opposed. Okay, thank you. Okay.
One other quick thing. There isn't an old business section. Can I do an old business, a quick one?
Sure.
Okay. In the minutes correctly, it says that Commissioner Blair asked for clarification on the agenda on the public forum. Planning Commission reached a consensus on the chair directing staff on public forum language on the agenda. I'm hoping what we see, I'm not asking for should we have testimony or not, but rather that it's really clear when the public looks at the agenda, okay, is there going to be testimony or not? So, you know, on this is today's agenda, you can read through it and say, oh, okay, there's no space for it. But the statement that there won't be public testimony.
I move that all of our agendas have a
I think that would be clarifying.
clarifying comment about whether there will or will not be public testimony.
Do you want a formal motion about that, or is that something that's?
You could just take care of it.
Chair, I have a comment on that. I did send to you, Gretchen, a request. This was dated, what's the date on this? Was regarding tonight's meeting. I reviewed the agenda and asked if you could add time for public forum input. Typically in the past, the commission has made a recommendation to the council. When there's a recommendation to the council, there's been a public forum comment opportunity. So I requested that that be added and that the city rescind a revised agenda to inform the public that they will have an opportunity to speak. Without that being sent out, there could be community members who aren't aware that they're going to be able to speak tonight, and I'm not sure how we should handle that.
Well, it wasn't intended to have public comment. That was the discussion that we had at the last meeting. I did not get your email.
It was sent to your city email address.
There are some issues that I cannot use the city email address, and everything is supposed to be forwarded to the email I have, and it did not get to me. I apologize for that happening. That unfortunately is one of my disabilities. But the discussion was that we wouldn't have public testimony. If the commission feels we should have public testimony this evening, I will do so if that's the majority of the members in attendance. Is there any discussion on the item?
Well, I think it's important that we stick to what is published, because if we do allow public testimony tonight, then those that didn't think there was going to be public testimony may have a hard time.
Okay, well, that's kind of the way I felt, but I'll have a different feeling. But I do agree we should make it very clear in our agendas. I assume our consultant isn't going to be here tonight? Shame, I had some questions. Okay, moving right along. We are to consider action requested of the Planning Commission regarding approval of the West Side Trail concept to City Council. And Max, you're on.
So, would you like me to go over the amendments made to the concept before you have a chance to look at it? So last time what we did was we kind of had everyone sort of come off while I was up there, and it became more or less like an internal conversation that didn't really fit the bill of a formal process. So what I would recommend doing this time is you all come well, not individually, but without me, walk around, look at it, formulate questions in your mind, then you'll go back to the dais and then ask me those questions. And that, what would you like me to go over the amendments first or after?
Could I ask you, before you do that, to put in the public record the history of the various decisions that the council has made regarding the trail going back to 2014, just to list them to how we got to where we are?
Yes, so in the staff report, Exhibit A, I listed 2014, after Metro drafted the original West Side Trail Master Plan, the City Council adopted what's it, a resolution, I guess an ordinance?
It's a resolution, I believe.
Yeah, a resolution approving the West Side Trail Master Plan as it was put in Metro. So what that did was that essentially put the plan in place that at some point in the future, when the development happened of that area, the trail would be put in place. And again, that happened from the City Council back in 2014. Leading up to our meeting in last month, the City Council has adopted two resolutions that support grant pursuits. So in June, the current City Council approved a resolution for the pursuit of a TGM planning grant for the West Side Trail. Ultimately, that grant didn't work out. After some more pursuing and research and talking with Metro and ODOT, we realized that it wasn't a good project for that grant. But then for the current grant, the current City Council also approved a resolution to pursue an RFFA grant. So we have, up to this point, as far as I know, going into the records, 3 different resolutions that have all been approved by 2 separate City Councils for this project.
And was there a grant obtained from Metro regarding planning this project?
Not for planning this project. Some of planning this project was, this project was taken into account when the TGM grant in 2018 was approved. and the transportation system plan was developed because the West Side Trail is considered a project in the transportation system plan. And that goes back to the PGM grant. I think 2019.
We still received the RFFA Trails and Bonds grant to get this project to about 15 to 20% engineering level for planning for a design build grant later.
And that was approved in 2022.
So we received funds from Metro specifically to do the early planning.
What we're doing right now. Yeah, the funds that we've received from Metro and the city match have gotten us to, as well as some stuff that's not reflected in the concepts like surveying and environmental and consulting work and
I
stuff.
think it's just very important to have all of this in the record. Okay.
It's in Max's staff report.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're okay. So again, it goes back to like logistically, would you prefer to look at it yourself and come to your own conclusions and have questions and then I answer your questions, or would you like me to give you kind of a brief of it and then take a look at it? But I do think it's important that I continue to sit here and then we ask questions one at a time in an orderly way, so as to be clear.
Can you let us know? I like the order where you let us know what
Okay.
changed.
I'll just start here on the north end. We got some feedback about what was originally called a nature park, based upon some survey results and also some people that came to the open house. It wasn't exactly clear what this amenity was specifically supposed to do and what it was reflected to do. So we changed the name to nature-based playground / vegetated garden. Someone sent me an email. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he gave me some really good insight on kind of what a nature garden sort of can look like. What I'm basing this off of is an area up in Reed's Crossing that has wetlands integrated into kind of a natural playground area. So we changed the shape, we brought it back over towards this wetland that's identified, and then if you look at the shape itself, there's a little dotted line. That dotted line indicates the delineation between the area where people will really walk and an area where there's going to be some like vegetative enhancement and potentially some educational plaque that kind of talks about the natural plants and bugs and, you know, wildlife that exists within that wetland. So it's a little bit more intuitively designed and also just kind of more illustrative of what the actual amenity is meant to do. We added some picnic tables just to signify that there are going to be picnic tables. There were some concerns about the restroom being separated from the playground close to the street and next to the parking lot. So what we did is we kind of reconfigured this entire little intersection right here. We brought the playground and the restroom away from the road. There were some folks who live on this alley and on Capulet that were concerned about having a parking lot directly adjacent to their homes. So what we did is we took the parking lot, we moved it further west on the other side of the trail and added another community garden, which also addressed concerns that the community gardens were too small and there weren't enough of them, which we agree with. So we added a second community garden. We figure that will reduce noise complaints, but it'll also reduce some concerns about just a parking lot being an eyesore outside someone's home. They bought the home, they want to look out onto a field, so we put a garden there. And then we put the restroom, doesn't really geographically change much, but we put the restroom inside the playground polygon, just to signify that they are kind of, you know, meant to be integrated with one another. Moving further down, people were curious about why it was considered to be a soccer field. So we wanted to make it more clear that it's a multi-use field. It doesn't necessarily have to be used just for soccer. So we took away the soccer field, but we want this to still be an open field. The fact that it is called out here instead of everywhere else is because when we go into our plans and we start doing grading work, we can call out and say this should be flat and landscaped. So it'll be a flat landscaped field where you can play soccer if you want, or you can just play Frisbee or hang out or have a picnic or whatever. So it's delineated, but it's still there, but it won't be just strictly a soccer field.
So that area is pretty flat?
It's slated to be flat, yes. We added parking along the alleys because based off of my experience going to some Edgewater HOAs, conversations with the Edgewater president, some other representations from that HOA, and the homeowners that live in Edgewater, parking is one of their chief concerns about not just the West Side Trail, but the configuration of their neighborhood as a whole. They often talk about how if there's a soccer game and baseball out at the park where it is now, traffic will bleed into their neighborhood and people will park all along where they are always usually parking. So the alleys being a place where people can't park in general is already a problem. And we don't want to exacerbate that problem. So what we did is we added a bunch of parking along the alleys that our vision for that parking is probably something in the lines of it'll be day use parking for the park, and then maybe the HOA members will have a tag in their car or something to show that they live there, and then they will have rights to that parking throughout the day and overnight and stuff.
Are you visiting, having a restrictive parking?
Yeah, well, I mean, it'll be parking during the park hours for the general public, but parking 24/7 for within the regular confines of the code.
That would require the council to create a special, we've done this in other parts of town.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be a council item.
Special district or something, yeah. And I think that's pretty much the bulk of the amendments that we made. We wanted to identify that the equestrian trail is multi-purpose, so there were concerns that, and rightfully so, there is not really a space for horse trailers to come in and park their trailers and have horses. So instead of being more of a regional equestrian trail, we're looking at it more like a local trail for folks who live in Rivermead or other areas up on Bull Mountain or throughout the Kingston Terrace area and down Beef Bend that have horses. They can use it as a local trail, but then also what Commissioner Blair mentioned, and just for anyone who ever runs, having a soft surface trail alternative is always just a nice way to run. It's better on your knees. It's a good place to walk your dog. So we wanted to call that out specifically just to kind of alleviate some of those concerns that it'll be multi-purpose. With that, I'm going to put this mic over here, and I will invite you to come and take a look. If you have any curiosities about how it's changed, or you have any further pressing concerns, just share. Do you think maybe just take a couple minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody will take a look.
Automatically, okay.
I'm so sorry I didn't get.
If you have any questions, hold them in your head or write them down. I'll answer them when you come back to your seat.
Anyway.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Actually, I live along here.
We need a "You Are Here" sticker.
Playground dog park, and then
Well, I think we should have some discussion, and I think I'm gonna start down at that end and get comments from each person.
Is that vegetative garden also a community garden?
No, it's just gonna be incorporating the wetlands, so it's gonna be kind of fenced off and have just like wetland grasses and stuff like that, so it's actually gonna be, just that portion that's fenced off is gonna be relatively inaccessible.
I didn't hear the question.
It's the vegetated garden is gonna count as a community garden.
We need folks to speak up when you're talking.
Do I need to repeat it?
It's okay, I hear.
Yeah, and I think the changes made this last time are possible, important from the public.
So I'd like it to come back to me after people have spoken. Do that?
Okay.
Okay, so just the first thing is, nice outreach. Well done, well orchestrated. I think you got good feedback. I like what was incorporated into it. I think you have an improved concept here over what we did last week, and so I appreciate that. I've got other stuff that come back to that.
Okay. Other end. You're on.
I'm on?
You're on.
Okay. I'll second Dean's comments about, am I on?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll second Dean's comments about incorporating feedback from the community. It looks like you've made a lot of changes based on that, and I know you put a lot of work into this. I've got several concerns, one of which was brought up last meeting concerning easements on the property. And I could go through those one at a time, but I don't want to take everybody else's chance of speaking, but I'm just going to give you an overview of some of my concerns. There's easements on the property for the benefit of Portland General Electric for the transmission line, Clean Water Services for stormwater drainage and detention, Kinder Mortgage for their high-pressure petroleum products pipeline, and City of Tigard for a water line and BPA for their transmission lines. These easement restrictions impact the city's compact concept plan for the park and will likely require detailed review and approval due to the infringement of some of the easement restrictions. PGE right-of-way general guidelines say that building structures of any type, grade cutting or filling should not be conducted without their thorough review and approval. Ground level changes, no obstructions or excavations within 50 feet of the transmission tower, and there are tree limit heights. The Kinder Morgan high-pressure petroleum products pipeline. This is an 8-inch diameter pipeline under 1,440 psi. That's a lot high. That's high pressure. It carries gasoline and diesel fuel from Portland to Eugene and runs down the corridor. Its depth varies. Its easement is 20 feet wide, and it basically says no permanent structures 10 feet from the pipeline. Building anything over the pipeline requires detailed review to prevent possible damage. Road crossing may require bridging, and roads are required to cross perpendicular, not angled or parallel. But they must be bridged if the depth of the pipeline is insufficient. BPA requires a land use application, generally require 50-foot clearance from BPA poles, guy wires, roads, paths, fences, or structures. There are tree height limitations. I'm not familiar with what the Clean Water Services and Tiger easement requirements are. The concept plan now shows parking on Montague Way will not meet the 50-foot PGE easement clearance from the tower. The proposed wet restroom structure does not meet PGE easement requirements. Fencing for dog park infringes on Kinder Morgan 10-foot easement restrictions. The Fisher Road roundabout shown on the map would infringe on the Kinder Morgan easement requirements to cross perpendicular to the pipeline, and it's doubtful that it would be able to bridge over the pipeline where it's shown. The bike path from King Lear Way infringes on PGE's 25-foot clearance from the tower for trails. Portions of the trail location infringe on PGE and BPA 50-foot clearance requirements. Proposed basketball court may not meet clearance requirements for BPA lines. That's the height requirements. Trail location at Beef Bend infringes on BPA and PGE access from Beef Bend Road and infringes on the clearance from PGE Tower and BPA poles and guy wires. The location for parking lots under PGE lines could create nuisance electrical shocks due to electrical charge buildup when a person touches an ungrounded metal object such as cars and metal fences that are underneath the lines in the right-of-way. High voltage power lines such as PGE's 230,000 volt transmission lines in the corridor can possibly induce electric charges depending on the distance from the power lines. These are unpleasant electrical shocks and may not physically harm people, but can be long-term nuisance and unpleasant to people. I've got additional comments, but those are just the issues regarding the easement. So I'd like, after others have a chance to speak, I'll come back to some of my other concerns.
That was a lot. Yeah, that's great. I have much more simple things than that. Okay. So I just wanted to appreciate the work of staff and the consultants in reaching out to the community and the work they've done to make the adjustments that we were all talking about. So I think that's pretty great. This kind of covers my top priorities for this trail segment, which is the trail itself, is the most important thing. River access, number 2, which is what I think most people are saying. And the important thing, the native planting and the rehabilitation of the wetlands, I think these are my priorities. And now I'm excited about the community gathering spaces, with restrooms and parking and water for the garden. So the active, areas are less important to me. So I think if you're concentrating on these top 4 items is where I see the best starting point for this concept. And again, we're just talking about concept here. This is not anything final. All of the things you're talking about will be dealt with as we go forward. But it's concept right now. But I think it's going in the right direction. I really like it. So, yeah.
Well, what I was going to ask, are the wetlands set where they're at? Are those wetlands that have been mapped and?
Those are actually delineated wetlands.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Okay. Being one of those people that designs playgrounds, there's no reason to have a separate nature playground and a playground. They can be incorporated with each other, saving a lot of money, maybe putting there's not much more room there for the playground, but that doesn't need. One of my big concerns is that on a July 15th day, it's going to be really hot. And I don't see any plans for any shelters. And there should be shelters by the playground, by the dog park, that should have water and mostly shade, since we can't plant any trees. Those are my biggies. I'm still concerned about having some sort of entryway off of Beef Bend, and I'm not sure how to do it, because we talked about the fact that there's a lot in the way. But as people come down Beef Bend, they're going to want to know how to get into this park. So wayfinding will be kind of a big deal. I've never played basketball, but is one basketball court you do? or do you put 2 down? Or I don't know.
It'll depend on the design parameters.
Yeah, okay.
Mitchell mentioned, we have limitations on.
Okay.
Currently, we only have a half court park right now.
Oh,
So in
okay.
all King City, there's not even a single full court. There's one half of a court.
Okay, that's not good. Okay. And just one thing that I thought of this afternoon that can be just thrown into the mix is that we should really, because we've got the community gardens, we need to think about pollinators. And so when we are planning this space, there should be, instead of planting it all with grass, we should really be looking at places to plant pollinators. I had 2 tomatoes this year. And if we've got community gardens, we need pollinators.
Appropriate plants, yeah.
Yeah.
Right plant.
Okay, I'm going to let you say your piece.
Oh, okay.
I'll be a stand.
I've got several too.
Go for it.
I can just keep it objective. So this is, as I said, I like the concept. It's a little bit different issue. A month ago, I did not really realize that Edgewater actually owned a big chunk of this, pretty much halfway out, all along the houses in Edgewater. I'm assuming everyone got the letter from Jessica Bragerman, dated October 9th, about the time of the last meeting. Anyway, she's Edgewater HOA, and said that, are people familiar with that or not?
We all know about it.
Okay, cool. So her request is that they formed a land use committee and are setting up to determine this, and they request that as they continue, they're in a fact-finding mode now, and would appreciate King City giving the volunteer committee and the homeowners time to get the facts, figure out what they want to do. Then also a letter from Gary Woods, I believe he is on this committee that's been formed now, requesting that we postpone the meeting about the concept plan until they've had a chance to look at it. And so my point is that we've made some good improvements. I think we've got some good stuff, but it's their land. They are, until they do something with it, the developers. I think they get to look at this, and they get to, they're the neighborhood that's gonna have the most benefit from this. They're the neighborhood that's gonna bear the biggest burden. And that's what's happening with a lot of the development we're having in this area. They get the regional collector road, they'll get the extra traffic on the dock, they'll get the noise and the traffic from the park, and with an amenity-rich park, we're gonna bring in a lot of outside, non-King City people. I mean, they'll flow down from Bull Mountain. And so I think it's important for us to respect them. They are the landowners. And so I would suggest that, and we can talk a little later on whether there's a rush to do this. But it's important that they not just get input, that actually get to collaborate on, this is what we want. It'll be an advantage to us, to King City, because then you will have willing sellers, or at least sellers that can accept what's going on and avoid issues and fights and things that go on and on and on and on and on. So my take is, right now, it's their land. They get, they can choose to develop or not develop. We need to respect their request to give them time to do this.
Okay, your turn.
My turn again?
Hopefully you will be a little briefer.
I may not be.
I would ask that you summarize then your concerns.
Well, I do have lots of concerns, and I would like to explain them in enough detail to the other commissioners.
Okay.
So that they fully understand what the concerns and the nature of the concerns are, if that's acceptable.
But do as much as you can to shorten it. Otherwise, we'll be here all night.
Well, this is important.
Okay,
So,
I'm not disagreeing.
okay. I agree with Dean's concerns about the homeowner association. I noticed in your comment gathering that some homeowners associations participated in getting comments, but there was one comment that the Edgewater Homeowner Association contact was not successful and that you didn't get input from them. And that was in the results page. And so now we've gotten letters from members of that HOA. And we've gotten a letter, I think you just received a letter from a lawyer representing the HOA asking for more time. You received a letter from Jessica Braverman, the HOA president, requesting more time. So I agree with Dean that I think it would be best to not push this quite as fast. So on another note, regarding the points that I previously raised, yes, this is a concept plan. However, some of the concerns about the easement, I feel should be addressed with the easement holders early on so that we know that the concept plan you're proposing is really a feasible plan. In other words, there's not going to be something major that's a surprise that would alter a plan that you're asking us to approve. That's the reason I brought up all of the issues about the easements. And at least, I think that it would be appropriate to give them a heads up, contact them, and get an initial feedback. It doesn't have to be a formal approval, but just feedback saying it looks like some of the accommodations can be made. And then your plan would have more standing in that it's not just, that it is feasible and the concept plan can stand. Another point is, for the ordinance, there's ordinance 2023-03. The comprehensive plan was amended and approved by the council. It states that the official comp plan is now the Kingston Terrace Master Plan. And so the master plan is really the comp plan. So any changes to the master plan are really a change to the comprehensive plan. And there are ORS requirements for changes to the comp plan. And we must follow those. By ordinance, we must follow all the codes and ordinances. It also states that the official comp plan map is page 105. However, and Max, I brought this up with you before. Kingston Terrace Master Plan only has 93 pages, so I presume this is just a typo, and I'm not sure what map is the official map of the Kingston Terrace Master Plan. You sent me a map, but it didn't have any numbering on it, and you thought that that was the official map, but I don't know where it should be in the master plan.
Yeah, I went and talked to Communicode. It was a typo. It's 16114. That code is the regulating plan that is the comp plan map for the Kingston Terrace. And it's that where you found the 105 should have been fixed after we had that conversation.
Okay, I'm looking at 16114.180 residential neighborhoods regulating plan. Is that what you're referring to?
No.
Okay.
It's figure 16114.9.
Well, there's just some confusion. I'm sure you'll straighten it out.
Yes.
Okay. Page 120 in the KTMP describes parks and lists a linear park going along the BPA easement side. Page 121 shows a linear park as a Tier 1 project and a linear park as a Tier 2 project. Tier 1 being shorter length and Tier 2 being done after Tier 1. The concept plan is for a community park, which is significantly different from a linear park. At some point, the concept was changed to become a community park. I don't know how that got incorporated, but that's what you're proposing. So I'm asking, has this change been evaluated for its effect on the KTMP park plan and its effect on park SDC requirements for funding, all the work that was done behind that, and its effect on statewide planning goal 8. Textual changes can be made to keep the Kingston Terrace Master Plan as a conformed document, and such changes may not substantially affect the state planning goals, but they do need to be submitted to DLCD. Or at least I believe, based on what I've seen, they do. So my question is, has the city made a revision and submitted it as a revision to the Kingston Terrace Master Plan?
No revisions.
Okay, so I'm wondering, do we have the cart in front of the horse? In other words, can we approve as a commission, at this point, can we approve a concept plan, which is a change to the comprehensive plan, before the city council has approved even a textual change to the KTMP.
Answer to that?
Well, yes,
I think that, one, I'm not prepared to answer the question right now. So I will be, going off of just my understanding of the situation, but, this is a linear park, as far as I'm aware. And, I think that's what it is in the Kingston Terrace Master Plan as well. It's a linear park, right?
it's described as that, but the concept is appears to be a community park.
Well, like I said, I haven't really researched, what the true definition of linear versus community is in that regard. I'll have to look and.
Sure, but
Can I read it to you?
If there's anything that we're doing here today.
I will read it to the commission.
Well, what uses are allowed in a linear park?
Okay, community park, general characteristics. Community parks can be active, passive in nature, or a combination of both characters if the site is large enough. Key features, amenities that could include playground, community garden, picnic shelters, play natural areas, hiking, disc golf, close to the toilet, restrooms, parking, pathways. Sounds like a community park.
What's a linear park? If you don't mind my asking.
A linear park, a greenway integrated with street network and/or other infrastructure. General characteristics, open space integrated with the electric transmission tower corridor along the eastern edge of the plan area. And what you have proposed is a winding trail covering both sides of the corridor.
I think it's relatively arbitrary. I would have to look at the specifics, but it seems like the definitions are relatively arbitrary on what you can plan in a linear park versus a community park. And I think that the Kingston Terrace Master Plan actually calls for, uses in all the parks that are acceptable, memory serves. And like I said, I don't have it in front of me. I'm not prepared to answer the question, so I think a little bit more research.
but that shouldn't stop us in planning our also guidelines.
Next item that I'm concerned about is the comprehensive plan, map, page 41, that Max referred to. This is page 41 in the KTMP. It's called the Residential Neighborhoods Regulating Plan. And the purpose of this plan, as stated in the Kingston Terrace Master Plan, is to guide and promote adequate flexibility in planning and development. Building and fixing road locations before development occurs will limit flexibility when the actual development happens. Roads should be built when development occurs, so this flexibility will not prevent minor changes in road locations if needed for efficient development planning. So this concept plan, as I understand it, isn't just showing the roads as potential future roads to show that the concept plan will work, but it appears to be a plan for us to approve actual construction of the roads at this time. And I'd like to get a clarification if that's the correct intent.
Given Fisher Road's alignment, as it's already in place, kind of dictates where it's meant to go already. There's not really wiggle room within that intersection, nor is there wiggle room with how 137 turns into Watson. Those intersections are already there. Again, development will dictate where some of the road network goes, but development from developers insofar as housing is impossible to happen in this corridor. So it doesn't really fall within that confine because no one's going to be able to build houses or neighborhoods underneath those power lines.
I'm not talking about development under the power lines, development along 137th. As those property owners decide to develop, the plans for that development could be restricted by not having flexibility to move those roads slightly to accommodate their development plans. So when you fix the road at 137th, you have eliminated flexibility for future development that could occur.
Are you talking about the, west side of 137th, the rural area?
Yes.
Because, you know, generally, you want, I mean, these are aligned with the roads that are already in place. And in general, most likely a developer, I mean, we could even, you know, sub them out, would want to put their road in alignment with what has already been built, like Capulet Lane there, and Fisher, and I'm not sure what's down there. Because that's what makes sense. And I remember, when Fisher Road was first extended, the driveway for the old lady who owned the property on the other side of 131st, was misaligned. And she did not want to sell. Then I moved away for 3 years and came back and it was aligned. And I do believe it probably will be aligned. And so I don't see that as a big deal, although the wording is there that we want to allow for flexibility.
You're right, it may not be a problem, but we don't know until those property owners sell. And if they want to move the road to maybe perhaps add a few more homes, they can do that because the road is, you know, and so that would limit the flexibility in order to do that. At least that would be one of my concerns.
Yeah, I think it's already been limited because of the other side.
Okay. More, I love this. I feel like I do.
I'd like to answer one question that Commissioner Mitchell had asked about whether this would affect Parks SCC that was calculated. And the answer is that the Parks SCCs were calculated on other parks throughout this area and didn't include the programming for this park. So those are not included in it. So that was my understanding at the time. And when we look at this, these improvements are not in this document. Most of the stuff for Kingston Terrace starts at 137th and then moved over. It understood that there would be a park at that location, but it didn't go into great detail on planning that.
Yeah, and so I have a question. When the wording was written for the linear park, it sounds like they were written for the linear park that was meant to be near the town center or along Fisher Road that...
Actually, if you don't mind my interrupting.
Go ahead.
The linear park that's over in the urban town center is the urban park.
Okay.
So those are the urban park blocks. And this is considered the linear park in the Kingston Terrace Master Plan. It's on the far side.
Okay.
And it does talk about the BPA right of way as part of that. And it identifies this as that part. The thing is when Commissioner Mitchell is talking about characteristics of linear park or general,
Right, yeah.
These are the general characteristics, right? So those characteristics can change or what have you, or do whatever the Commissioner, Council, or the community wants in those parks. Don't necessarily have identified source of funding like an SDC, something to that effect.
Okay.
In this particular instance, what we're pursuing is grant money to help us get through this project. Because we feel like this is a regional park,
And it's going to be a regional asset, and this is a regional trail, and we signed into the West Trail back in 2014, and it was identified as a regional trail throughout Fort Metro. So, our little walk and our little chance
took it to the community to find out what they wanted. They collected it up on boards and stuff, and that's what we brought forward, or had our consultants put forward.
Regarding the West Side Trail Park, and the West Side Trail itself, this segment was allocated to King City. Once it's built, King City will be required to maintain it. And there will be costs associated with that. And in your concept plan, I see no estimate for what those costs will be and whether perhaps bond measures will be required and taxes are increased on homeowners in King City. That's a concern of the homeowners. And so building this early before development occurs puts that burden on the existing residents of King City, rather than waiting for development to occur and let that burden fall to all new residents. That's a concern I have. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's my turn. I am firmly opposed to doing a roundabout, specifically relating to the easement issues that were mentioned by Commissioner Mitchell. I think we had a discussion briefly at the last meeting about high priority items versus lower priority items. It's my feeling that we should not include the lower priority items, which were the skate park and the bike course. I'm not a biker, so I can't get into the specifics. It's very unfortunate. There was a mailing that went out to every resident in King City. I believe it was in March, could have been the beginning of April last year, announcing the event at the elementary school. And that's how I found out about this happening. I got the mailing because I wasn't involved with the city at all at that point. And I went to that meeting. It's very unfortunate that nobody in that neighborhood association apparently read the announcement that it was happening and began to participate. That concerns me, that it wasn't important enough for them to even pay any attention. So, we're talking about something that's not going to happen soon. The city doesn't have the money to do this kind of project. It's going to be totally dependent on grants, correct? So it's probably going to be done in small bits. Over
the high priority areas is.
Yeah, over many years.
That's correct.
And my understanding is also that negotiations have begun with PG and most of the other entities involved in this project.
That is also correct. We've had multiple meetings with PGE, or with BPA. We've had meetings with BPA, or with PGE and Morgan as well.
Okay, so they're all involved in the discussion.
They're aware of the plan, of the concept, and they've also seen, I don't think they've seen this one, but the amendment, the other previous version of this concept, they've seen the amenities.
Okay. Now, the trail was started clear up in the West Hills, goes through unincorporated Washington County and through the city of Beaverton. And some of those pipes, all of those issues with BPA, PGE, fuel pipes, etc., go under the trail. Is there any reason to believe that our situation in King City is different than what happened in unincorporated Washington County or in Beaverton?
Those types of questions will be asked and concerns are raised from our engineering consultant. They've been kind of taking point on those negotiations, but you're right. I mean, if you look at even just East Bend, right there, you have a county arterial with the Kinder Morgan pipeline underneath it and power lines on top of it. And, you go to Reed's Crossing or Butternut Creek, you have 15-foot pedestrian crossing signs underneath those power lines. So they're allowed in other places. There has to have been some way to make it fit. And so we would be exploring those options. If that's lowering the gas line or lowering some of our amenities or getting rid of some of the fences or, you know, what those negotiations will be ongoing for the foreseeable future.
And one other question. I've gone to various parts of the trail in Beaverton and farther north, and I've seen facilities similar to what we're talking about. Could you describe some of those?
I think specifically Reed's Crossing, as I've been mentioning, also that bridge. So if you go up to Mercial, and you take the path north, they have basketball hoops, they have tennis courts, they have playgrounds. The trail goes up and through, roads are crossing, playgrounds are next to the roads with the bike crossings all through that area. You can follow that trail quite a ways. Not follow the whole thing, but I have been from Progress Ridge all the way up to where it drops down. Actually, I have been the whole way to where it goes all the way to Farmington. So from Farmington Road all the way down, or TV Highway even, you can follow that trail all the way down to Progress Ridge and hop off there. And travel that whole trail and you're going to find tennis courts, you're going to find basketball courts, you're going to find playgrounds, you're going to find community gardens, you're going to find nature parks, and everything that we are programming in here, you're going to find along that. Go to Butternut Creek or Reed's Crossing, the Max was explaining, you're going to see giant play fields and dog parks that are fenced in and community gardens, and you're going to have barbecue areas that have covered areas next to them, and they even have fire pits, circle around fire pits. We talked to BPA, we've talked to PG, we've talked to Kinder Morgan. A lot of their concerns are the way structure addresses their infrastructure and what kind of tolerances are there and making sure that it meets their tolerances. So, as Commissioner Bellows kind of mentioned, nothing on this concept will be put in place without getting total sign-off and permitting from whichever utility is directly involved. We can't do anything in the shadows or under the radar without the utilities first signing off.
Yeah, I think the main concern now is to have concept, because it's going to be graded. You know, that's one of the first things that's going to happen to the space. And so, you know, if this is where the basketball court might go someday, we want to make sure that's not hump, you know, things like that. And that's why it's important to do it in spaces of time.
If I could touch on one thing that you mentioned, Shaner, specifically the bike park and the skate park. You mentioned that not a lot of people from the neighborhood came to that, from the adjacent neighborhood came to that community. In all of our community outreach events that were advertised, including the survey, we didn't have any input from kids or teens.
Mm-hmm.
What's the average age of a lot of King City? So the general consensus would be, yeah, bike parks and skate parks, don't need them, because we have a lot of people who are responding to our events and giving us feedback on our surveys who don't use those types of things. When we went to the elementary school, bike park and skate park were ranked 6 and 7 out of 15. So behind, like, the river access and the playgrounds and some of the more obvious things. So, you know, giving kids this option of a place to go, I think is not something that we should just lightly brush aside. it is identified as low priority, but to eliminate it entirely, I think is doing a disservice to the young people in the community, especially considering that it's right next to an elementary school. So if I went to that elementary school and I got out of school and I rode my bike, I would go to the skate park and hang out with my friends if I'm 10 years old.
Is the equestrian trail a priority? How many people have horses?
Not a lot of people have horses. We had a couple of people who came to our first event at the Deer Creek and were extremely outspoken. And they were also outspoken in some of the Metro events 10 years ago, and that was kind of how it got put into the Metro plan. So we included it because it was put in the Metro plan 10 years ago. And also because if you do look at it holistically, it does serve that kind of multi-purpose deal because it is nice to have a soft surface trail next to it.
Would that trail also continue over Bull Mountain, or is that the equestrian part just in King City?
There's not really a trail right now, so I mean, if people kind of steep, I'm not sure how horses can go on, steep, unkept.
I'm sure they do great.
I'm sure they do fine. I'm sure people ride their horses up there right now, but it's not programmed into any future plans that Washington County has. So,
Tiger's getting ready finally, now that they've cited their latest reservoir that will be serving the western part of the newer part of King City. And that's going to allow them to start planning their portion from the top of the hill down to the Beaverton city line. Most of everything on the south side is in the county. And so Tiger doesn't have jurisdiction there. So I don't know what the county.
So just above us is county?
yeah,
Oh.
kind of weird if you look at
There's little bits that are in the city, but the vast majority is in the county. Until you get almost to the top.
Okay, thanks.
That's a long story requiring probably an hour to explain.
I don't think you were done with your comments yet.
Yeah. There were some comments about concerns of, on Capulet, I believe, of kids. They have kids playing at the end of their current street. What kind of, and they were concerned the kids would wander off. Were there any responses to those comments?
We had some chief concerns about the proximity of the playground, the restroom in between the playground and the parking lot. So having a playground next to a parking lot, next to a road, people expressed concern. So we addressed that by moving the parking lot over, bringing the playground and the restroom in closer off the road, and having a community garden in between the restroom, or in between the playground and the street. So we made effort to directly respond to those concerns.
And the other thing, I saw that you've added some parking along the alley. Is there any thought of just making that a full street and providing diagonal parking along that strip?
There was thought. It really, you want to limit how much pavement you're really putting in. So having the vertical parking maximizes the amount of parking you can have. Having diagonal parking with a full street adds more pavement and reduces the amount of parking. And then just having pure parallel parking on how the alley is right now will limit the amount of parking you can actually have. So there's kind of pros and cons to each of the different options.
If you have diagonal parking, your depth is less, but you can only access it from one
Well,
direction.
or could you just have vertical parking all along that road? I
Parallel parking?
No, not parallel to the road.
Perpendicular.
Perpendicular, thank you, I couldn't think. I mean, I remember in Beaverton, the railroad tracks and two major streets on either side, and they had perpendicular parking on both sides of the railroad tracks. And it worked
So not nose-in parking is,
nose in, yeah.
that's how it is right now.
Yeah, but have it along that entire, stretch.
So we did that on the south side alley. In the middle, there's limitations.
Yeah, we have limitations for some of the.
There's also
wetlands.
Oh, is that where the wetland is?
Yeah, we have wetland limitations. and
Okay.
facility limitations.
Well, if we could just look at maximizing, because that's immediately adjacent, and particularly families who have small children or seniors who may have some physical limitations, it would be good to have some more parking in that immediate vicinity that's really close with several handicap parking lots.
Maybe double the
Parking from like the last time.
Okay, but I also want to make sure we have more handicap parking spots, more than the minimum, because,
We're old.
well, I have problems often finding a handicap parking spot.
There's definitely gonna be, I mean, within our code, there's some standards for handicap parking, and then as far as some of Commissioner Bellows' concerns, we're looking at having maybe some, vegetated ends and just like some little median, like there's gonna be a prescription to kind of make the parking lots nice, but yes, there's definitely gonna be handicap parking.
Yeah, with a nice graded path so that people we need to be prepared for people in wheelchairs and walkers.
And knee scooters. Oh, man, I gave up on interesting pavement when I had that knee scooter. Speaking of the families that were concerned about Capulet, are you familiar with the concept of Woonnerf? Woonnerf is, it's a Dutch concept. And basically, the pavement, it's open, and the pavement gives you the message that this is the place where people walk and that the people come first. But you can drive here really slowly and very carefully. It's hard to describe. So that you don't have a curb, basically. You just have pavement. But that does slow cars down. They come into the space and they kind of go, when am I supposed to be here or not? And it gives space to kids, kind of like if you were in a cul-de-sac and the cul-de-sac was just wide open. It might be a design strategy, because I hear, I heard her concern. You don't want your kids to go too far. You want to be able to yell out the back window, get her. Well, that just might be something to look into. WNERF, if I remember correctly.
Can you get the correct spelling to them?
I will look it up.
I know exactly what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
There's some areas like that, maybe not work.
Woonnerf? Okay, hold on. It's Dutch.
She's looking up the correct spelling.
Woonnerf. Maybe Lunar, never mind.
Chair, are there any other comments?
So, as I had commented earlier, the importance of, Edgewater collaborating on what we see now, what they want. I just want to make sure, and correct me if I have any timelines or concepts wrong. I came out of the meeting a month ago with some incorrect concepts. I thought, I was under the impression that, there was a rush going on because of the grant, what are the initials on it? Yeah. Do almost immediately. So my understanding is, we're meeting today, we're the planning commission, we don't make Final decisions, we make recommendations. Grant deadline is Friday, 4:00, right?
Yeah.
That has to be turned in then. The city council, who does make final approval kind of things, they don't meet till the Wednesday after that. So anything we do here doesn't affect that grant. I went through your deal, and there's one paragraph when they ask, what are the local amenities? And, you know, we list some of these, but it's not that grant, which the money comes in 3 years from now, is strictly roads and trails. The map that gets turned in for that has 0 amenities on it. No basketball court, no dog park, no nothing. It has roads and trail. That's the only thing that's being applied for. And what we do here is not a rush to get that in. The resolution that the city council is looking to approve next Wednesday allows for future grant applications, and that would be for all of these other things. And so I have a concern, one concern on that is we kind of have an experience, and you had mentioned that this is just a concept, it can change. And we've kind of seen that before where things are just a concept, lines on a map, 10,000-foot level, and then those comments become, commitments have been made, everything is intertwined, it's a done deal. As I look at what is supposed to be done by the council, it says this concept plan will be featured in grant applications as the city pursues funding sources, providing potential funding sources with an approved concept plan, boosters grant applications, strengthens partnerships, blah, blah, blah. Providing the concept plan indicates the city has worked earnestly, is ready to advance more complex design and engineering tasks. And so it kind of feels like this is a moment that kind of mimics past moment where things were approved, knowing they could change, and as soon as that happened, they can't change. As I look at this, it had been mentioned that the crossing roads would have a barrier. That grant says these are here to connect. They're here to connect 131st to 137th, relieve traffic, and that's fine because the roads and the trail were all approved in the TSP. They don't need our approval. So I think I've got this right. The whole point being, this isn't a rush. We can wait for Edgewater to approve it and get real buy-in from the property owners. Yeah, please.
Not quite, because they're talking two different programs. The ARPA money that we're applying for wouldn't be awarded until, it would be funded for 2028, through
3 years from now.
So that's not necessarily a big rush, but the deadline for us to apply for it is.
But what we do, the deadline's Friday, right?
Yes, this is a different grant and also has its own deadline, which is actually the end of December. So in order for us to get this before the council, we need this commission to make recommendations so we can move it forward and satisfy our grant. And that's what we're here today to figure out is taking this discussion and these recommendations, putting that recommendation into a
resolution of this commission to be considered by the city council. And so that's what we need from this planning commission, this body, is to render that recommendation so we can move this up to the council, so we can get a determination before the end of the year.
And you're speaking on the 2020 grant, the 2022 grant for Metro Grant.
Yes.
They've already been awarded. So what we're doing is we're showing Metro what we've done with the money that they've already given us.
Okay.
This is the culmination of the 15% and the 190,000 that they've already awarded the city, and this is what we've
So if we don't do this, does that mean we have to pay the money back to Metro?
You know, that's always the million-dollar question. And the thing is, we don't want to be in a bad way on our productions on grants. When we apply for a grant, we go in knowing full well what we're getting ourselves into and what we're trying to work toward the end. Here we are now, 2 years later, we've been working on this grant this whole time. Time to deliver on our end of the commitment, right? That Metro made a commitment to us, they granted us money. We as the city accepted that money, we've been extending it, we've been using our engineers, our consultants, and everyone else to develop this plan with all this public outreach. We've now done an extra set of public outreach that wasn't in the script. So now we're
Bless you.
technically over budget and time to deliver.
What are the minimum, requirements that we need to deliver at this point?
Okay,
Plan
this
with the community outreach that we put together. This body needs to make a recommendation. We can take that recommendation if you recommend that we more handicap spaces, you recommend that we don't include the lower priority. We can take your recommendation to the council, but basically what you see before you is now going to go before the city council with planning commission recommendation on it.
Could you go over the grant dates in the grant? It was a little confusing to me. It wasn't clear what you were saying about the deadline for submittal of the grants. You can get it in on time. Would you explain that
The deadline
again?
is the end of the year for this particular grant right here. It's the Trails and Bonds grant that we use.
Okay, the Trails and Bonds grant is going to be for how much money?
It's already, it's basically, the total was 360, it was 360 or 350?
Around there, yeah.
And so that's what you see before you, and that's what we've been working on for the last couple of years.
What's the grant for the roads?
That's ARPA, the RFFA federal grant for trails and roads.
Okay,
So the Metro grant got us to here, so the RFFA grant moves us to the next step. Because this is just concept.
And then as Commissioner Blair had mentioned, yes, that's the first step. So then we get that portion under the federal grant piece. So then with this plan in place, we can then progress further and refine the engineering, refine the planning, and add grant requests for playgrounds, grant requests for wetland enhancements, grant requests for nature parks and community gardens, and we can start applying for those grants. But I can't apply for anything if I don't have a plan, right?
Got it.
So with the plan, I have a course of action, I have a mechanism to pursue additional funding resources. Without a plan, I have nothing.
We're setting ourselves up for problems. My recommendation would be work hard with Edgewater together. That would be my recommendation, and I think we'll avoid problems that extend for years.
Yeah, that's my hope. We just, recently got the Yellow Book stuff, so we need to go chat with them.
Yeah, if Edgewater says, this is great, I'm great. I'm good with that.
We're trying to do
I
something
want
we
to
can.
support them, they're the ones that are gotta pay the price.
Well, the parking that we changed with this one is definitely, in my vote, something that's going to be more expensive. We're gonna have to now find additional funds for the parking side of that. Some of the fields, trails, community gardens, those are, a lot cheaper to, move forward. Dog parks, relatively easy. Infrastructure, restrooms, those sort of things are not cheap. Those are gonna be expensive. Roads are not cheap, expensive, trails not cheap.
Fighting constituents, that's not cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, for any of us. And I'm hoping King City can sidestep that. I think it's in our benefit. I think it's in our best interest.
Problem with Edgewater, their city attorney advised their HOA, or the HOA attorney advised them and the city that in order to even hold a valid vote, 80% of people who live in Edgewater need to participate. So it's gonna be difficult for Edgewater to hold a valid vote. So we're gonna be making effort to try to get, and working with the HOA, because it's gonna be necessary just not even to get approval, but to get enough people to even vote. And that was words from their own attorney.
you can get majority of people in Edgewater, say, this is what we want. I mean, you may be forced, because of this 80% thing, do it, to use eminent domain. Because nobody gets 80% of people to, it doesn't happen. But if Edgewater says, this is what we want to happen, we'll help you because we support it, that would be so much better for everything, and it would be worth the wait.
I think that's why we're trying to add the parking, because we know,
Yeah, this is much better than it was a month ago.
we know that parking is a huge concern for them. And I
Yeah.
think they're actually going through a bit of an argument right now about parking in alleyways and things of that nature that was brought up at the same HOA meeting. So that's why we tried to add as much parking as we could fit in alleyways, and hopefully.
That's kind of what I was getting at as well. See if we could put some more parking there.
It's gonna be hard work. It's gonna be hard work, but it'll be worth it if we do it.
No, I hear, you know, we're talking about regional park on one hand. On the other hand, who do you project will really be using this? Walking over and taking your dog and,
I think it's gonna be a combination. I mean, when you're adding in the access, the whole concept of this is to help with the wetlands, bring back nature, access to the river. People are gonna be coming down this regional trail from other parts, and they're gonna want that access. So they're gonna be coming through here. So the more pleasant it is, more natural it is, it's just gonna enhance the experience with the interface with the river. I mean, that's what I'm seeing is the important things. The other stuff, the park, the skating, the blah, 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 whatever, that's just peripheral to me, and for me. But yes, we are gonna have folks coming in, so how do we wanna present ourselves in King City? What kind of a impression are we wanting to give to people that are coming in from the outside to use our beautiful trail that goes down to the river? Well, that's what it's about. But we have to start somewhere, folks. This concept is a starting point.
Yeah.
That's what this is. It's a starting point. And let's just think of what we have had happen in the last month with like additional outreach, more people looking at it, and really, from the comments that we received, the majority of folks are like, hey, we really like this. We like the direction this is going. So yes, we start here. We're going to be fine tuning. We'll be worrying about parking spaces. We'll be looking at this and this. But right now, we don't need to get that far into the weeds. We just need the concept to go forward. That's what I'm seeing. And Edgewater will be helpful, and they've been giving us their input, of course, as are other parts of the city. So, but we have to start somewhere. We have to start somewhere. So, this is it.
And the Edgewater input is,
Absolutely.
give us time before you do it.
And they've been inputting. You can tell from the comments and from the demographics that a lot of Edgewater people have been commenting on this. And we're still over 50%, we're in the high 70s overall of people supporting the direction that we're going. And that's what it is, we're the direction that we're going. So that's where we have to start. We have to start with something.
The public is already.
Already started back in May, I believe, was May 7th, was when we first had our survey and our open house, and I believe we had
That was after the first mailing.
after the first mailing, which included everyone in the city. So 3 surveys, including the kayak launch, 4 public outreach events, and then the additional one after the last planning commission meeting, 2 planning commission meetings. So, this has also been an off topic in multiple city council meetings, which are usually pretty well attended. So it's not, there's definitely been some active public involvement for going on 6 months.
Not longer, I'd say, but
This project we go into 2008.
Oh, yeah.
Before that,
That's forever, right.
So there was a substantial public comment period
Yeah.
before that.
Yeah.
It's been long process. We've picked up the burden of planning this section only recently, so over the course of the last 2 years, there was a lot of pre-work that went into it before we went public. We took it to the park a couple of times, we took it to Deer Creek, the evening open house a couple of times, and this whole went to back around. Been out and floating about in a number of different medias and things of that nature. So and I think, but I do believe that Commissioner Blair makes the balance, you know, the building block that we start from. And as that's the building block, and then we begin refining it, it gets harder and harder and harder to change further down this course we get.
Mr. Viner, I have a question.
Yes, sir?
Regarding, the trail itself. It starts at the Tualatin River, segment 1, and goes up to Beef Bend. What's the timing for getting the bridge across the Tualatin built that continues the trail south? And what's the time frame that the section north of us going up the hill would be built? What I'm leading up to here is, without those connections, all it is a segment that doesn't provide anything until the next segments get built. And if that's the case, rushing this through before those sections are available, I'm not quite sure I understand the necessity of getting it done before those sections are done.
So the hope is that Tualatin has their own projects, Washington County has their own projects. We can't control what they prioritize, but what we can control is our contribution to the greater regional network.
Right.
If we build our segment, then we can go to Tualatin, to the Parks and Rec folks, or the planning department over there, and we can say, hey, we've got our segment built. We can go to Metro, who owns Heritage Pine on the other side of the river, which is likely where the bridge would terminate on the other side. We can say, hey, we've got our segment. Let's get this continuing. So to sit on our hands and just wait for things that we cannot control to happen and hope that they will, it doesn't seem very proactive. What we're trying to do is do the opposite of that, build our own segment, and then go to county, go to Tigard or Tualatin, go to Metro, and say, we've got this, let's continue this. Because I know Wilsonville has almost done their entire Tonkin Ice Age Trail, which is the south segment, which is going to be the counterpart to the West Side Trail. The Ice Age Tonkin Trail is the one that's on the south side of the river. And so Tualatin is starting to catch up too. So I just think that the onus is on the city to do our part and contribute. And since we are such a linchpin in the greater regional network, since we're connecting these two huge trail networks, you know, why not get it done, and then we can kind of start kicking our neighbors in the butt and saying, hey, let's get it going, and so we can actually start really getting that network built in this part of the metro area.
Do we have any time frame for when the section north of us is going to be built up the hill?
For the
'Cause that's-
section north,
You want to talk about the other one? So, because, so Max knows this as well as I do. Tigard's building River Terrace 2.0, and while they're doing River Terrace 2.0, they also have trails coming across that as well, trails that link to Art Runyon Elementary, and they're going to follow along. And actually, that trail is being built right now. And it'll go over to 150th and actually have a direct link over to Woodview. Woodview will go straight over, it's a straight shot to tie into the West Side Trail. So you have direct links that will be done probably in the next couple of years. Actually, I think that Bedrock is already in to 150th, and Woodview is just straight across from where it is right now. And so along that trail, right now it goes, I don't think it goes all the way to Art Runyon, because there's a couple properties in between that it hasn't connected yet. But the the plan is there and staggered, and that trail is slated to go all the way around over to Progress Ridge and tie into the West Side Trail going north. So then the idea is that bikers won't have to go straight up Full Mountain.
Yeah, the
Not
zigzag.
easy.
It is a bit of a trek if you're going up a section or
When you
Main
look.
Street or one of those.
Hold on.
So the idea is that that trail will go around, and so you make the West Side Trail, provide an alternate bike and trail route around that's less, onerous than going straight up Full Mountain.
Commissioner Mitchell, I don't know if you're aware, Woodhue goes from 150th and it goes right under the BPA power lines and then proceeds east. So that's where the trail connection will be coming under the power lines there.
It won't be going straight up the hill, zigzagging?
It will,
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I meant.
But I meant it's,
There's
but,
a timeline for that. There's an alternate, bikers planning an alternate trail that's more family friendly around
the hill itself, like around toward our Rock and around that way. It's longer, but it's,
but Woodhue is relatively flat up at that point. Speaking as someone who walked up there for years. So,
But that section of the West Side Trail, hard to say, there are some connections, like Peachtree has a walkway that goes across. You can take Collier up and around, and then there's little segments of trail that goes underneath the power lines, some of the newer developed areas, but then you get to other areas further up that, don't necessarily have a connection going through there. And then you have to go around on the road or sidewalk or something.
it's not complete. But the idea for our section, the biggest thing for our section is we get this chunk done and the bridgehead is set. And Tualatin's coming along with their, Tualatin Greenway Trail, and they're already across the river underneath 99W, coming through those apartment complexes that they just built on the other side of the river. So that's where their trail ends. And they'll probably likely go up to Cycle Road, which is straight across the power lines down south. And so once
Our edge, or our end is done, then it becomes a last mile connection for the bridge across over. It's a more healing project,
Mhm.
like 26 bridges now. 26 bridges, like, let's connect the trail. Well, this will be let's connect.
I have a question, and that is, if we get this concept, which we can move things around inside the concepts, if we have that plan, is that some leverage to go to Tualatin right now?
It's proof that we are working on it.
You know, I don't know if we really have leverage necessarily, but we have talked with the Parks and Rec head over there and the director of planning, and they're excited about the project. As Mike mentioned, they have just finished, they had a ribbon cutting ceremony at the Tualatin Greenway Trail earlier in the summer, and, you know, we're kind of unofficially prodding them a little bit and saying, hey, you guys, we've got ours going. But ultimately, when that bridge is built, it's gonna take a three-way partnership between ourselves, Tualatin, and Metro. And that's just the way it is, but we've got our segment, that's one of the three key pieces.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, I guess we need to make a decision. Anybody?
Have a motion to do something?
Sure.
One way or the other?
I move that the planning commission approve the concept plan to be forwarded to the city council.
Second.
We've had,
I would like to make it clear that it is a concept plan, but it says concept plan, so.
We have a motion and a second. Would you like to have some discussion on the finer points? Because I heard a lot of
Yeah.
pointers, recommendations, things of that nature. Or you're in discussion, now's the time to figure out if you want to add any of that to the motion or if we want to.
Commissioner Boehner, I have some comments regarding the motion.
Okay.
Okay, I'm looking at our charge as a planning commission. You know, we are supposed to make sure that everything we do is in compliance or non-compliance with ordinances, resolutions, regulations, or laws. And we are also charged with recommending to the council plans for future growth, development, beautification of the city, et cetera, which this concept plan would be. So we have two tasks, as I see it, in front of us. We have amenities for this park that we're addressing, and everybody has things that they like in the park. And there's been a lot of work done for that. So that's the concept plan. Now, regarding the ordinances, I have a concern that what I said before about cart before the horse, this looks to me, based on everything I've seen in DLCD requirements, to be a change to the comprehensive plan. It concerns me that the city has not done an evaluation and gotten city approval that the changes to the comprehensive plan, in other words, the Kingston Terrace master plan, do not substantially affect the goals of the state land use planning requirements. So I think there needs to be a step before we can approve the concept plan, and that step would be for the city to revise the text, do the evaluation, and approve the changes to the Kingston Terrace master plan. Let's say that the stuff that I've found says that text changes and map changes, and this would involve a map change showing community park versus linear park, and text changes that in the Kingston Terrace master plan could be done by the city council, and then those changes need to be reported to the DLCD. It wouldn't need to be reported as an amendment that substantially changes the plan, but we do need to conform the plan so that the changes do get put into the plan.
I would like to address your comments. This is a concept. We could almost, without drawing it out, saying it is a linear park with a trail leading from north to south that will have amenities for the community, including a dog park, community gardens. Is that minimal of what we really need? Okay. When it comes time to bulldoze and start laying concrete, that's when that is the place where we either approve the plan as a concrete plan, as in if a housing development goes up, then our code says only 3 townhouses and somebody put in 5. That's our time when they're looking for building permits to say no. But this is a very general concept. We're saying we want a path and some natural areas in the end with my thing is boat dock, at the end. That's really all we're saying here. We're saying we are going to have a path we're not going to concrete the whole thing over and make it a driveway or, you know, whatever. We are saying this is our concept of it. And so I'm with you, Lori, that we can approve a concept plan. And it doesn't need to be held in concrete, dimensions, because, yeah, we do have, the engineers, probably did take into account all of the easements, and we've been talking of easements already. And it may have to change because of the easements, but it's still a concept. And, you know, you may not like your roundabout, but it's still a concept, you know. We had the idea of putting roundabouts somewhere in there. But, you know, I'm really with Lori that concept is we have a trail going down and it looks pretty and nature-like and people can go there. Because right now we can't go there. We can't dig through the weeds. I tried. You know, just that is, I mean, we almost make a statement that the concept plan is a trail with community amenities that is accessible by the community. That's important. That may or may not include X, Y, and Z. I mean, do we have to have a layout?
Right, I'm just gonna, this is a resolution,
Okay.
an ordinance. I already had players, building blocks out, that, and I told them.
I'm going to speak. I've been a real estate and land use lawyer for 40-plus years, and you don't need to deal with DCLED at a concept plan stage. It's when you're getting ready for your final plan that you have to do all of your appropriate documentation and send things to DCLD. So it's premature to deal with text changes and et cetera.
Commissioner Boehner, may I respond to that?
I have gone to LUBA on some of these cases. I'm very familiar with how this works.
May I respond?
For 1 minute. 1 minute.
I contacted the regional representative for Washington County Metro and other cities regarding DLC's participation in local government comprehensive plan amendments. And according to OAR 660-018-0035, text changes and map changes do need to be reported when they are made by the city. And even if it's not a substantial change that changes the goals, a text change would need to be reported. If I look at the notice of a proposed change to a comprehensive plan, use regulation, DLCD, it's got requirements in it, and if the Kingston Terrace Master Plan is incorrect and we vote on a concept plan that is not appropriate for the wording in the Kingston Terrace Master Plan, then I think that's inappropriate for us to go ahead and approve the concept plan before the city makes a ruling on changing the Kingston Terrace Master Plan. Thank you.
So maybe we can amend our motion to say that we approve this concept plan upon City Council's agreement to change their wording. No,
No.
okay,
No.
no, okay,
But then this
You're
is,
requesting a resolution, which doesn't change any
Yeah.
law.
no.
okay,
no,
all right.
No.
And to be frank, like, the amenities that are in here, we're looking at for the ARPA grant, part of is the trail and the street network. The other thing that I would say is that the linear park allows for some latitude for the council and commission and others to determine what's in and what is can be considered. It says, a network, street network, and other infrastructure. It also says paths, exercise stations, playgrounds, vegetation, benches, lawns, and tree planting. And if you look at like the park descriptions, these are just generally, general characteristics. So it's a generalization of what you typically see in these sort of things. It's not a list of thou shalt not allow this or thou shalt have this. It's a general characteristic of what that park entails.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you can't do this or you can't do that.
But we're not, what your action today and what, if the city council approves based off of your recommendation and their own discourse, is just a resolution. Any kind of comp plan amendments. In which case, you're correct, we would need to contact the LCD, and there is a very strict process regarding that, but that's not what's on the table right now.
Yeah, if we were doing a map amendment or a text amendment or a code amendment or something like that, yes, Commissioner Mitchell is exactly correct. We would need to go through DLCD, we'd do our Form 1, we would hold public hearings, we would do the whole 9 yards, and it would take us probably 6 months to a year to get.
Okay, would you call for the question? I call for the question.
Okay, the question has been called. You want to say something, Ronnie? Oh. Yes. We all need to,
So does anyone on the commission have a conflict of interest they'd like to declare?
Let me get a clarification. It was my understanding from the last meeting that that statement that's needed for is for quasi judicial hearings. Is that correct or not correct?
Making a decision at all.
any decision.
What I was trying to say is, at the time that you wanted to do it last time was not the appropriate time. Now is the appropriate time to do it. Because now you guys, you made a motion, did a discussion, now the question has been called. Now is the time that you need to do.
I think I don't think it matters if it's quasi judicial or what
No,
we
it
have
doesn't.
right now. I just think it's in your best interest to say whether you have conflict of interest before. And I think in order for everyone just to reconcile that you have it, if you think you have a conflict of interest, probably declare conflict of interest or any potential conflict. Just to protect yourself. So that's my advice. That if you feel you have potential conflict, just go ahead and declare it now, so it's not.
I'm going to start,
I live within walking distance of the park.
I'm going to start at your end.
Okay.
Actually, if we could start at the other end, I want some examples of
So actually, Gary had a really good statement started last time, so if I
I
Okay.
wish I had brought it with me. I'll make a stab at what I recall I said last time. I live in Edgewater on Fisher Road, and because of the proposed changes, my property value could potentially increase or decrease regarding the concept plan approval.
I have no conflict of interest.
I have no conflict of interest.
I don't think I have a conflict of interest.
I live on River Lane. It proposes a road through, could increase or decrease.
I live on Montague, so really close to the park, so again, my property could increase or,
Do you want a roll call vote?
Yeah, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Gauthier?
Can we, state the motion?
Motion was to approve the recommendation. Motion was by Commissioner, seconded by Commissioner Gauthier.
Are you asking for my approval or attendance?
Good, took this down.
Yeah.
Black.
Yes.
Commissioner Blair? No. Commissioner Vainer?
Yes.
Fellows,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell.
No.
Motion passes 5 yes, 2 nay.
Okay. Unless there's anything else? Is there anything else
That
from?
is it.
Actually, I would appreciate if you could get some of the summary of the comments that were made to council in a list with their packet, so that,
Minutes will be along. You're talking about from the sermon?
no, from our,
Today,
from our discussion of issues that were raised.
so, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the only thing is just anticipate that the next meeting will be December 11th, and
We will be discussing likely the feedback. And then, as I mentioned last time, and then eventually.
That's the other stuff that we talked about last month.
We're still waiting on PSL for this.
Okay, I need to have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
I second. Good thinking of fast enough.
All adjourned.
Did you get everything, Ronnie, you needed?
Okay, I like it, the read, this is